A lot is happening in the tech policy sphere. The likes of Amazon, Flipkart, Meta, Google, Zomato and Swiggy are facing intense scrutiny of their practices, with the government looking closely at alleged anti-competitive practices of these firms. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who is also in charge of Ministry of Corporate Affairs, informed Rajya Sabha that the Competition Commission of India, CCI, is conducting inquiries into operations of big tech and several big tech startups for flouting competition laws. And in another big development today, NCLAT has upheld CCI's order and fine of 1,337 crores on Google for anti-competitive practices in relation to Android mobile devices. But NCLAT has also modified CCI's order, striking down some portions related to permission for uninstalling Google Suite software. Meanwhile, the Lok Sabha passed the Competition Amendment Bill, a significant measure that introduces deal value threshold of 2,000 crore rupees. If a deal value exceeds 2,000 crore, then either party has substantial business operations in India. The CCI approval will be required. The proposal has its roots in the recommendation of Competition Law Review Committee report of 2019. Joining us at this point in time is my colleague Ashok Bagriya, who's the legal editor. Also joining me at this point is Shashi Shekhar, who's through with us. I want to come to you first, Ashok. Do the recent steps in the government indicate that days of getting around the law are over for big tech and startups?
Well, this has been an ongoing process that the Competition Commission of India has been cracking the whip, not just on foreign big tech companies, but even on domestic technology companies. Now, this has been happening since 2018, and since 2018, we have seen a number of orders have been passed by the Competition Commission of India, not just against local domestic companies like Make My Trip, Go Ibibo, Oyo. Besides that, we've also seen Google, Meta, Amazon, which have come under the scanner of this Competition Commission of India. Now, this was a foregone conclusion, considering that India is stepping into 2023 and trying to introduce some policy changes. And the idea behind those policy changes is not just to tighten the grip on these big tech companies, which are actually the big market players of the new age economy. What has really happened in the last few years is that there has been a shift from the traditional marketplace to the digital marketplace. What we are seeing in the digital marketplace is that these internet-based companies have become the place where consumers are trading and buying goods. So there has to be some sort of a regulation the government feels which has to be put in place, and especially at a time when the interests of the consumers have to be protected. So this seems to be a right step in the direction by the government of India, and especially the Competition Commission of India, that it's cracking the whip on these big technology companies.
Okay. Shashi Shekhar Vempati, who's the former CEO of Prasar Bharati, is also with us at this point in time. Shashi, I want to bring you in, especially on the standoff between Google and CCI. It's bitter. There are allegations of anti-competitive practices, but not just in India, everywhere in Europe, in US, in the UK. Do these face-offs, especially in India, because India is a developing country, does it dent India's image as an investment destination, or are they necessary?
See, I think we are well past that stage where, is this about India being open as a market? I was just reading today in the Mint that digital advertising in 2023 is estimated to be as large as 80,000 crore plus, which is huge. And if you look at which are the big platforms where all this transaction around advertising, digital advertising is going to take place, it is these big tech platforms, right? So clearly, we are well past the stage where it was about innovation, it was about growth. Now it is about fair play, level playing field, because over the years, especially the last 2 decades, these tech companies have accumulated such a large base of users, which has given them disproportionate leverage in the market. So clearly, in that sense, India is a test case for how digital platforms will be regulated going forward. As was mentioned by just now by your colleague, there is new laws that are being framed. There's a Digital India Act that is being envisaged. So clearly, what happens in India will be a benchmark for many other markets, because we are one of the largest, democracy, one of the largest open markets for these technology platforms. So in that sense, India will be an important test case. Until now, it was largely regulations that were happening in Europe, and the United States, of course, to some extent, that the rest of the world was following. But now there could be a different model, and that could be the Indian model, the Indian way of regulating big tech platforms.
Okay. Ashok, I want to bring you in here at this point in time. The standoff between Google and CCI, and that's become bigger and bigger. We are given to understand that various commissions, NCLAT has also upheld CCI's order. But Google has a problem. Google says that you're copying Europe's orders. You are not passing your own orders, but you're actually drawing inference from what is out there when it comes to anti-competitive allegations on Google. What do you make of how this is playing out?
Well, there's nothing wrong in following the European model as far as CCI or the NCLAT or the Supreme Court of India is concerned. In fact, this is one of the arguments which has been peddled by the Google in the Supreme Court of India, where they are challenging this 1,337 crore fine which has been imposed by the Competition Commission of India. Now, clearly here, what we are dealing with is a case where Google was indulging in anti-competitive practices, stifling competition by its dominant market position. So what the Competition Commission of India held was that by the virtue of their dominant market position, they have been able to stifle competition and they need to be fined, because it cannot happen that there can be a level playing field and at the expense of one dominant player, all the other players which are local players or which could be even smaller players, they are not given level playing field in the market. So for the abuse of that dominant market position, Google was fined 1,337 crore rupees. And in another case where they also misused their dominant position was with respect to the Google Play Store case, where they forced the app developers to use the Google Pay method for receiving or making payments for every purchase which was made by the consumer. So basically the whole idea here is that if the European Union or any other Western country follows a particular model, and if India is in its bid to protect the domestic market as well as the players and the consumers are the most important. If it is relying on European decisions or US decisions, there's nothing wrong in it, as long as the domestic consumers and the local players are protected. So there's nothing wrong. But yes, there is merit in the argument that Google is saying that what the Competition Commission of India did in its judgment while imposing the fine of 1,337 crore rupees was to cut, copy and paste the European Union's order.
Okay. Shashi, what's the big message going out to big corporations right now? They may be jittery. Some of them know they're flouting norms. Some of them know that they have different set of norms and operating strategies in different countries. They are more liberal here in India, but likely now can't cut corners. Government is tightening the noose. What is the big message out there for big corporations?
Clearly, the big message is that you can't take the world's largest democracy for granted, which is one of the biggest markets for digital services, goods, mobile phones, and apps around this entire digital ecosystem. So I think that is a big message. And with the new acts that are being drafted and framed, clearly the government is putting the big tech platforms on notice that you have to have a different approach in India. You just can't impose your norms on India and then expect that the biggest market will be available to you going forward.
A more generic question there: with the tech landscape now evolving, how can companies ensure that there is more transparency?
As you're seeing the pace at which technology is evolving, I think it is just incredible and mind-boggling. If you look at the last few weeks with all the announcements between Microsoft and Google around artificial intelligence, clearly there are newer facets of technology which demand greater transparency, greater accountability from the big tech platforms. The data protection bill draft that was circulated for consultation, I think is an important step towards India laying down certain norms for how transparency will be there, but that has to go beyond just data, especially the algorithms, the models, because as we are seeing with these AI platforms, is that there's a whole lot of bias that is built into these models, and that is a big area of concern. So we will have to take a close look at how the big tech platforms are rolling out new technology, new innovation, because they are creating a bandwagon effect. Large numbers of users are playing with these algorithms, these AI models. and in the process, we are making them even more intelligent, even more powerful. So it becomes extremely important that we have very clear norms for both transparency and accountability. And I'm hopeful that the Digital India Act that is being drafted will look at all of these aspects.
Okay. With the advancement in technology, there appears that law is playing catch up. Ashok, Shekhar, thanks very much for joining us with your inputs on that story.